Okay, there we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Grumpy Tonight. Tonight we're here with Trey Bishop. Trey, how you doing tonight?
Doing good.
Trey, we're here to talk about a seat you're running for here locally. This would be the Oklahoma City. Um, what is it? Suddenly, just it's
Yeah,
District
Oklahoma
Three.
City Council election, Ward
Ward
three.
three. That's Ward was the word I was looking for. Sorry about that. Ward three. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we do our elections always on odd years, and every other odd year we do four of the council members. This year we're going to do wards 1, 3, 4, and 7, I believe.
How many wards are there in the Oklahoma City area?
There's 8 altogether, and then we have the mayor, who is essentially an at-large position. An at-large councilman can be elected from anywhere in the city, so that's what the mayor is.
Okay, so let me ask you a little bit about how the Oklahoma City Council is structured. Some cities have a strong mayor. I'm not exactly sure the words, where the mayor has a lot of power, something like Tulsa does, where the mayor makes a lot of the decisions. Others have a city council where the council does a vote and they have a city manager. How do they do that here in Oklahoma City?
Oklahoma City is a council manager form. And so the council makes all the ordinances and things like that. And the mayor has a position as a figurehead, and he is the chair. He chairs the council meetings. But in our system, the mayor doesn't hire the police chief. He doesn't hire the city engineer. He doesn't make these decisions. Instead, the city council or they hire these positions, and they hire a city manager who essentially is the executive officer of the city. He's the CEO of the city, and he does all of these things.
So
So the city,
the city council hires these people, or it hires the manager who then hires all these other
I'm
people?
sorry, I ran those two together. Actually, the city council hires the city manager, who then hires all of the people underneath him, all of the other executive positions.
Okay, and do you know who our current city manager is?
He is new, and so I don't know much about him. This guy's name is Craig Freeman, and we've only had him for 1 year.
Okay.
But I see that job as very specialized. I don't know of a lot of people that have, city manager on their resume. It's a very specialized job.
Okay, so you're running for city council seat for Ward 3. Who's in that position right now?
That is Larry McAtee. If I'm probably butchering his last name, but that's how I say it. That's how I've said it for years. He has been our councilman for probably 20 years, and he is going to retire. This is his last term. He said he's not going to do it again. But the past two elections, I suppose he's either done so well, or people did not believe they would have a shot to be elected. So nobody even ran against him for the past 8 years.
Okay, so look, I want to say one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on here is because I think it's so important and so underdone that people in the community, regular folks like ourselves, step up and put their head on out there like this. I know publicly we can all get executed pretty quick. So you're taking a big risk by doing this. So I certainly admire that. And again, that's why I wanted to have you on here. So let me ask you, you're not challenging anybody as per se that's in the current position. So are you happy with the way things are going, or do you want to do things differently? And do you have an opponent?
Well, first of all, I don't like a lot of the direction that the city is going. Our ward in particular does not receive very much attention. Um, Larry McAtee has done things that I've really approved of, and he's done things that I didn't care for. So there are things just little things I would like to see changed in the city. Uh, But in general, I would like to see certain areas receive attention that are not receiving any attention.
Okay. And do you have anybody that you're running against in this election?
There are several people who have announced already. There's a woman named Barbara Young who's announced. Another lady named Kelly Payne, I believe, who works out at the stockyards. And there is Jessica Martinez Brooks. And I don't know where she works presently, but I know for a very long time she was at Oklahoma City Community College. Okay. So those three women have announced, as far as I know.
And when is the filing date?
Filing is not until December. It's 7th, 8th, and 9th. So whoever's going to file will file by then. And then the election, which will be, you could call it a primary, will be on February 9th. And because it's a nonpartisan, so it's not really a primary. If any one of the contenders receives a majority of the votes at that time, they will immediately be considered the new council member. But if not, if nobody,
excuse me, a majority being 51%, even if there's three in the race.
Correct. So if not, though, it will go to a runoff of the top two, and that will happen in April. And I think it's the first Tuesday on April or something like that. So it goes a little further. So these elections are kind of interesting in that they're not held with, say, the presidential election or any other state elections. This is just a city election, and if people don't come out because they have a particular reason they want to vote, someone they want to vote for, something that they care about, they probably are just not coming. They'll have to make an effort to get out and do this vote.
And is there usually a pretty good turnout? And this is my first year in Oklahoma City. Is there usually a pretty good turnout for the just the citywide elections like this?
No, there isn't. You could win or lose by a few votes. You could get just 1,000 votes and win. It's not like I said, it's not held with other elections, and so the only reason people really get out to do this vote is if they want something on city council change, they want a new council member or something like this, they will get up. But not unless they've got a really good reason. These votes get missed.
Okay, well, that covers the nuts and bolts of the position. Let's talk a little bit about what you want to do with the position. I've talked to you. I've known you for a while now through the cannabis community. And strangely enough, one of the conversations we've talked about has had to do with the homeless problem. Can you tell us a little bit about how you've looked into that and concerns you see?
I live directly on Reno, west of Mustang Road, Checkall Road. So right between Yukon and Mustang. And you wouldn't think that there are homeless people out here, but I have noticed in the 12 or 13 years I've lived here, people slowly moving this way up the road. And as I, go east and further into Oklahoma City, I would see more concentrations. But I just really became aware of how many people there were. So occasionally you'll see on community Facebook pages, you'll see talk about little camps here and there, people looking for help at this camp. And I realized they were cropping up around Yukon and Mustang in this area of Oklahoma City, full-on camps. And so I started making some connections with ministries that go out and mostly feed the people. But I've gone out with them and gone into these camps and visited these camps, and it's just shocking. And I don't think we've seen the full brunt of the financial impact of this COVID lockdown, but I think it's coming. And I think we're going to see a lot of not just individuals, but families in very scary, desperate situations. And there's not really any place for these people to go.
What
they can get food.
what are you finding out there now as far as the population? Is it a lot of families now, or is it
There
individual?
are families. There are families. There are women giving birth out there. Um, a lot of that's happening downtown. And downtown is what most people think of as the homeless population. They see people, you know, from Classen all the way over to Walker, all over this area, up and down, Reno, and you'll see little. You might think of them as tent camps or whatever, or just people sleeping on the curb. Um, but as you come further out west, there are big encampments, 20 or 30 tents, in creek lines, hidden behind businesses and neighborhoods, and you would just never know that they are there. Um, and I was lucky enough to know some people in ministries who were friends with these people because they're also kind of secretive. They don't want to be known that they are there because they'll be removed. Downtown, these a lot of these little uh, little camp, which is not, I don't really call it, I mean, they're just very, very temporary because the police will show up with private contractors, and the private contractors, while these people are not there, they're going to get food or something, will just clear everything they've got, just dump it all. And these people come back and they've got nothing. And they, because they're sitting on somebody else's land, it's legal. They don't have anywhere to go.
So, what have you got any ideas on how, if you were to win this election, you might be able to address that situation?
Well, Maps 4 that was just passed has it's 38 or $40 million. It's $40 million, I believe, that is supposed to be allocated for homeless. But they don't exactly say how that money will be spent. Um, I think, first of all, we have to have a place for these people to go. That's just all there is to it. There has to be a place where these people can exist, and that means property. That's not someone else's private property that can come along and boot them out. Um, a lot of these ministries that I've looked into, and the two that I've actually gone and been a part of, they are mostly about feeding the people. And that is a good first step. I mean, they have to eat or they're not going to live, but they need medical treatment. They need, some of them need psychological help. Some of them have cognitive disabilities and are going to need, they really should be in group homes where they have somebody watching out for them. But they're just out there by themselves.
So, will in a city council, is that who's going to help decide where that money goes? Would you
Right
have
now, they have
that?
selected a 10 people from the community who are an advisory board. And this advisory board will advise on how all of these different projects are spent. But it seems like 14, I'll pull up this page in a second, but there are 14 or 18 different I mean, there's a whole lot of projects on there. And that's a whole lot of work for for 10 persons on an advisory council who are meeting once a month to advise the council what to do with the funds for all of these different things. So city council ultimately decides how that money is spent. And honestly, they don't have to, the list that they put forward, saying we're going to spend 40 million on this or 120 million on this, they really don't have to do any of that. They could take some of these projects and axe them out. They could spend the money differently from how you might have conceived that money to be spent. So the money could either be wasted or it could be well spent. And I'd like to be a part of that decision-making process.
Okay. Excuse me. So, as I said earlier, I know you from the cannabis community. So let's talk a little bit about the cannabis issue in Oklahoma City. I know they passed an ordinance not that long ago, making it illegal to smoke cannabis in public. Nobody really seemed to notice that. It kind of slipped everybody's radar. Can you help us understand how you might address these sorts of issues if you were to be in that seat?
Um, well, I think the city may be going a bit far to be determining smoking things in public. The Oklahoma, what is it called? Oklahoma Smoking in Public Places Act
Mm.
dictates that, and it actually preempts any city ordinances. So that's really something that the city should stay out of, is trying to tell people what they can do in public places. Um, but as far as cannabis goes, both 788 and House Bill 2612 give a municipality or a county a lot of leeway in allowing more than what is allowed statewide.
Now,
So
when you say more, are you talking about for the patient or for the businesses? Because the businesses seem to be unlimited on what they can do anyway.
for patients, a municipality or county can make different rules, and they can't be more strict. 788 tells us that we can have 12 plants, six of which are in flower, and then it tells us that cities and counties can exceed that limit if they want to. They can tell their patients that they might have 24 or however many plants will fit in their quarter-acre backyard. Um, and there are good reasons. I think the people that are scared believe that they had good reasons to limit that number. They thought about distribution and things like that, and that makes sense. But what makes more sense is that Oklahomans are not all amazing gardeners. They have not all grown marijuana before, and that six plants in flower. I just had three plants in my cage die from root rot last week. And if I had only had six in flower, that's half of my crop gone. Um, and then we've got the issue of if all I'm doing is an outdoor grow and it's going to need to last me throughout the year, then the amount listed on the back of my card that I can have in my house, that's not enough. So I should be able to take all of my harvest, however many pounds that is, and Ziploc it or what do you call it?
Vacuum.
Vacuum seal it, or put it in 5 gallon buckets and seal those bad boys up and have have a sufficient amount throughout the year. But like I said, if half your crop dies on you, then all of a sudden you're left in a tight spot. So city council could actually exceed those limits and tell you that you can grow more, or you can have more in your house, or you can have more on your person.
So you would then encourage the city council to expand access to allow things like people with cancer and things that are making RSO to actually grow enough to make it.
You have to have a lot to make those oils. I mean, and then again, if you're making your own RSO, you're experimenting a lot in the beginning, and you may have some failures, some lost product. Um, and aside from let's say I lost my three plants, then I've got my three plants left that I'm curing, and it's my first time curing plants. I may find out that I molded half of that stuff. I ruined it. Um, so guide me back on track here.
Well, it's, as we were saying about your goal would be to expand access from that position. You'd want to allow more than the 12 plants then?
I think a lot of people that know me and that have been around me for a long time would consider me a very conservative person. But I'm also very much a believer that people should be allowed to make their own medical decisions. And I'm a strong believer in property rights. And so, though both of these principles may seem very conservative, they just scream out that we have to allow patients to be able to grow and possess as much as they might need and not be under these constraints. So I would encourage the other council members who I might consider liberal. I would I will talk to them and attempt to make this happen. I would like to. I don't believe in limits at all, whether growth or possession. Um, I don't think there should be any limits. I think it should be like tomatoes. Um, if I got a whole pile of tomatoes over here, I'll be able to have every one of them that I brought in and share them with my. Well, you know, I'm not. I don't know that you could go as far as sharing on council,
I don't.
but
Yeah, I don't
that's
know
where
that
it should go.
I don't know that the city council could do that,
No,
but
that
I
may be
I
that
think
could go into
that
distribution.
yeah, I
Now,
think
what we could do on council though is that Oklahoma City has an ordinance for all of these criminal charges that the state has, possession charges, and all of these things. We could strike these ordinances off the books. Now, that would keep Oklahoma City Police from doing something about it. If you're sharing with your friend, Oklahoma City Police wouldn't have a leg to stand on anymore. But Oklahoma County Sheriff Department might, and OSBI might, or OBN. So we couldn't prevent some of that, but we could prevent the Oklahoma City Police from making that any of their priority.
okay. So I've known you've had some opinions during this recent Black Lives Matter, during the protests and all that. Could you possibly tell us a little bit about some ideas you might have on how to heal some of that?
I have a kind of unique perspective in that I have biracial children. Um, I'm the white guy who's has the privilege, and then I have the kids who don't, and so I get to bear the brunt of that at the same time. It's an interesting thing. But I have a lot of friends who are in law enforcement, close friends, people that I love, and I've been on ride-alongs with these guys, and I know where they're coming from, and so I do believe that I have ideas that can heal the divide. First of all, a lot of people don't know police officers. They don't know law enforcement. And a lot of law enforcement don't know the people other than their families. They hang out with other police officers a lot of times. And I think that that can be remedied by people getting to know police officers and police officers getting to know the people. There's an El Reno police officer that I follow that I admire. He must spend more of his day driving around finding kids to play basketball with or to fish with, show them how to put a worm on a hook or whatever. And he considers that his police work. I don't, I think he spends that much time writing tickets or looking for people with drugs. Um, that type of policing, I think, goes a great length in healing that divide. Um, but I think there also has to be a systematic approach to not just nice thoughts and uh, whatnot, but there has to be a systematic approach where we city council can't determine what the minority communities will do. They can only have a direct impact on what the police officers or the police department will do. Um, but I would, as a councilman, I would go to these minority communities myself and find a way that we can have sit downs and dinners with police officers that they can get to actually know each other. Um, I know that sounds crazy. That sounds kind of nutty, but I think that having sit downs with people, I think sharing food together and just talking about families or the weather or the sports or fishing, whatever, um, is a first step. And the divide is so far It's just so far right now. Um, that steps like that have to be taken.
Well, I think we were probably more prone to those things before social media. Now everybody is so quick to swing the bat or the knife or whatever they have, rather than face each other across a dinner table. Do you think it's something you'll be able to overcome? I mean, that's hard to get to
well,
happen. It really
I'll
is.
tell you one thing. I think that after you have sat down and had dinner with people, after you've gotten to know them, you've gotten to know their families, it becomes much more difficult to swing the bat. It becomes much more difficult to be hateful to each other. You're like, but I know that guy, you know, and no matter which side we're talking about.
So, what do you think about the idea? This is a real general statement, but the defunding of the police. And when I say that, I think what they're talking about is to redirect some of the money from the police department to other organizations, not to eliminate the police, but to possibly change their agenda. What do you think of that, of that push to defund the police?
The libertarian in me says taxation is theft. So, but we have taxation, and we have the method that we use to keep the peace and to receive justice is police officers right now. Um, I wouldn't for 1 second take their money away from them. I wouldn't cut any of our police officers. I wouldn't cut the numbers. I would not cut the numbers. Um, I mean, where I'm at right now, I'm 4 miles west of you and four miles north, way out here in what we call no man's land. If you call Oklahoma City police, we don't know when they're getting here. This ward goes down as far as the South Canadian River, 104th, and as far west as Gregory. Um, so, I mean, that's almost Tuttle down there. Oklahoma City police almost can't respond down there, so we can't be cutting their numbers. But as far as defund the police, I think that these MAPS 4 programs that we're talking about, a lot of them will begin to take up the slack for some of the responsibilities we've lumped on to the Oklahoma City Police Department. We've lumped so many things onto them that just shouldn't be their jobs. I mean,
So possibly even if
they're not mental health professionals.
Right. So possibly even if your goal wouldn't be to defund them, so to speak, in that general term, like I said, but again, as I also said, to redirect what they're doing, to possibly re-educate some and give them a different purpose.
In some aspects, I would say it's almost like the teacher thing. I know people don't like this, but we can't expect teachers to do more with less. And we want our police officers to do more. We want them to do more, and we want them to do better. And so I don't think that. I think you can do more with less, but you have to be very careful. I think they need to go another direction. Our police department needs to go another direction. I think that the police chief who made some statements, he did a little Facebook Live or something, after this BLM deal, and talked very candidly about what he believes. There could be some culture change or some policy changes in the department. Those are some things I think that could be done. That defunding may be a word that I think is being used as a trigger word on both sides
Right.
of the left-right divide, where you know, the left wants to hurt the right's feelings with that word defund, and they want to be extreme sounding about it.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of giving a definition of how I was referring to this, because I agree.
I mean, when you
one of the weapons.
When you look at a place like Portland, which is a very liberal place, and then that little portion of Portland was taken over, and the law enforcement just weren't going in there. A lot of the people that were actually the people who it wasn't a residential area so much, but the business owners and such, they were like, and they're liberal people. They were like, where are our police? We can't even access our properties. So if that Chaz deal were the definition of defund the police, that's just absurd. You're asking for murders in the streets and
lawlessness. We don't need that. Okay, no. Well, Trey, we are going to wrap it up here pretty soon. Why don't you wrap it up by telling us why you'd like why do you like our vote? You are in that would be I'm in that ward, so this does affect me. So convince me.
Well, let me for the viewers first explain this ward, what it is. Of the 8 wards in Oklahoma City, this is one of the larger ones. So if you live anywhere from about 39th Street and Portland, where it wraps down southernly around War Acres and Bethany, and it goes south as far as Oklahoma City Community College, and then just stretches westward to Gregory Road, you know, just kind of past Yukon, almost to El Reno. It's a very large ward, very, very large. The people out here are they're just not receiving services from the city. They're not receiving attention from the city. And I have a feeling that there are other wards that are, that have the same situation. If you live in this ward and you want to see this ward given some attention, and I'll give an example of all these millions and millions, $1 billion. I mean, I have not added up the numbers, but the thing downtown, the event center or whatever, they're going to spend like $120 million on it. That's just one of the little projects. So there's a big pile of these projects in there. Parks and Recreation out here, and I asked you earlier if you knew where a park was by your house.
Yeah.
There isn't one. There's not a park for your kids to walk to. There's not a park out here for my kids to walk to. Any of these places out here, there's not a park for your kids to walk to.
They have a small private one here in the
private ones, yes.
I live in. And the dog park I can take my dog to in Mustang.
Exactly.
There's no kid toys there.
People that live in this area, if they're going to go to a city park or something, or to fly, I mean, 4th of July was the most recent example. You're either going to Mustang or you're going to Yukon. And Oklahoma City isn't just not doing anything for us. In that whole MAPS 4 project, Canadian County, this part of Oklahoma City, which you're that far east of, is going to get one park, and they're going to spend $2.5 million out of $130 or $40 million that they're spending on parks around the city. And the parks that they're actually spending money on around the city are not family parks. They are parks that are oriented toward other people making money nearby, the other businesses, those things down, the Bricktown stuff and all those things down there. So essentially, if you live in this ward and you want to see some attention paid to this ward, and not, I mean, I'm not just counting downtown. There are people downtown that need help as well. But we need some attention out here. And I believe that there are some other wards with outlying areas that are not receiving attention. And you guys should, if you live in one of those other wards with outlying areas, you should be taking a look at who your contenders for council are, and deciding who's actually going to pay some attention.
Okay. All right, Trey. Well, like I said, I honor your willingness to put your head on the chopping block like this.
It might get chopped.
It takes a lot of courage. It just might, but you're willing to do that. And that's worthy of attention in itself. I've also done a post encouraging anyone in any race, whether it be for a state office, local or statewide, or even tribal races. If you would like to come on the show and share your views on some things, just like Trey's done here, reach out to me and we'll get that scheduled. Okay, well,
you should go for Jessica. Try to get Jessica to come on your show.
Well, I'll send her. You send me her her information, and I'll send her a personal email, and we'll see if we can get her on.
Sweet.
Okay. Well, Trey, I want to thank you for being here, and again, thank you for sticking your neck out, folks.
Thanks for having me.
We will do this when more people reach out. So until next time, stay grumpy. I'll see you on the road. See if I can figure out how to stop this now. There we go. All right. You stay right there, Trey.